Great, thanks everyone. This track seemed like a really good idea a couple months ago, and now I look into the room and I look at all these already super users, and I'm like, what am I going to teach these people? So before we get started, I just want to go ahead and introduce myself quickly for those who don't know. Oops, actually before we do that, let's go through the agenda. So I'm going to introduce myself, maybe get a little bit of an introduction of who's in the room here. We're going to talk about a day in the life of an ETO administrator, which I'm sure many of you in the room can relate to. We're going to talk about how your role as an ETO super user or an aspiring super user can help your organization become high performing, or if you're there, how do you improve on that? The whole idea about performance management is that there's always room for improvement. We're also, so for some of you who've been super users for a while and be like, April, we've been there, done that, I know everything you've already told me, we're also going to do a Did You Know? And we're going to take a look at a sneak peek of some of the new release features that are coming out in the next couple of months, which is why I've asked Emily here. She's going to back me up like I backed her up last night in case I start crying. For those of you who aren't here, it's a side story. For those who don't know, Vince Griffith, one of the founders of the software, we had a cocktail party last night. He's leaving, so that was also his farewell party, so it was a little emotional. Then I was hoping if we have time, we'll go ahead and maybe do a little bit of an open forum, tips of the trade. Here's something I've done that's really helped my organization, and I really want this to kind of be a collaborative learning experience between all of us. I also am infamously known for talking really fast. So if I start to go too fast, somebody give me like a steel first base sign or something like that. And I'll try to slow it down, but we have about an hour and 15, hour and 30 minutes. So again, I'm going to try and go through content, and if we have time at the end, we'll go ahead and do a little bit of an open forum. So again, my name is April Rose. It's funny, I talked to a customer yesterday who I've been on several calls with, and finally they said to me, who are you and what do you do? And I don't blame them, because I've been with the company 4.5 years, and I've had 6 different roles and 7 different supervisors. So the answer is it depends on the day. Currently, I'm the Director of Account Management, which I'm really, really excited about. I actually started with ETO back in 2001. I was in many of your shoes. I was an ETO administrator for my organization. When I took charge as the Director of IT, we were moving from Paradox to an access-based system. So we had just finished a conversion, wasn't looking for another system, went to our local United Way, had some open house of like new systems, and I saw ETO and I was like, wow, we gotta have that. So I was a customer for 6 years. I was the one always calling customer support, complaining. I think they figured out the only way to shut me up was to hire me, so I would stop calling. But since then, you see there, I've had a number of different roles, working from the implementation department to a new team that we had started, Integrated Youth Services, which was focused on promised neighborhoods, solution specialists working with the sales team, and now, again, Director of Account Management, which I think is going to be perfect, again, having been a customer. I'm very excited about that. So. And Emily Megnin, let me introduce my partner here in crime. Emily Megnin, hopefully everybody knows, she's the Director of Customer Support. Also been with the company for what, 7 years, 8 years? Welcome, Emily, and thank you for your support. So I just want to get a little bit of sense for who's in the room. So by show of hands, who has been an ETO administrator, or if you're not the administrator, if you've been an ETO user for 0 to 6 months? Like you just got it, you're newbies. Wow. How come all of our newbies are sitting over here? Okay. Welcome. All right, how about 6 months to a year? So you're just starting in. Okay, you guys are over here. That's interesting. How about 1 to 3 years? Okay, a little bit of our seasoned veterans. 3 to 5 years? Okay, these are the guys you want to talk to. They know all the stuff. And then 5+ years. Anybody? Anybody? Ooh, Jill. What organization are you guys with? Jevs, great, thank you. Oh, and Shannon, I know you. Great. How about focus areas? How many people here come from organizations that you would consider just general kind of multi-service organizations? Again, we've got kind of concentration of folks. That's interesting. How about children and youth? All right, pretty big breakout of that as well. Workforce, you might be in the, if you're in workforce one, okay. We're doing a workforce track, so if you don't find me interesting, I won't be offended if you want to get up and check out the other one. Exactly, I won't get offended if anyone wants to get up and walk out in the middle. HMIS, homeless management, a couple of folks, yeah, okay. And any other that I didn't cover? Just one. What organization are you with? Family Support. Okay, I'm sorry, aging? Okay, great, great. Thanks, well, welcome. Now, how about by region? How many folks came from the West Coast, all the way from the West Coast? Anybody? Okay, great. I know I promised my folks from Pioneer Human Services I would try to find somebody else who came from Seattle, besides Lutheran Services. Anybody else from Seattle? Dag, I lied. All right. How about Midwest, Midwesterners? A couple of folks. Okay. Then everybody else relatively local, Mid-Atlantic, South. Anyone from Canada? Oh, Canada, sorry, forgot you, Blair. Sorry, yes. One all the way from Canada. You're sitting in the back. I didn't expect that. Great. Well, hopefully that gave you a little bit of sense of who's in the room, and if you haven't already connected, it'll give you a chance to connect afterwards, especially the folks who've been using the software for a while. Hit them up. So what I wanted to start with is kind of talking about, what does a day in the life of an ETO administrator look like, right? So you've got your, and this almost looks like your implementation plan. You've got configuration of the software, then you've got to do training, then you've got, and I'm sorry, the words are kind of small, I can tell now. Adoption, meaning getting them to actually use it and like it on a regular basis. Then you're starting to look at things like data compliance. Are they putting data in, or is it being put in on a regular basis? Then, okay, now they're putting data in, but is the quality good? Let's check that out and monitor that. Data monitoring overall. Reporting, okay, now how do we get the reports out we need for our funders? How do we get the reports out we need for performance management? Now we got to analyze the data. And then hopefully, if you still have energy left in the day, you can do some programmatic decisions with the data. Whew. But then this doesn't even count all of the other things you have to do, like not work. There we go. User accounts, right? You got to manage your user accounts, especially for those who have lots of them. Sometimes I've heard folks when who was it? And I said, "What are you doing?" Well, I'm actually cleaning the data and I'm putting the data in, and I'm so you're doing everything but the actual work with clients. Merging duplicates. Wow, that happens all the time. Board meeting report. Uh-oh, got to run a report, pull something on the last minute. Retraining. Oh, we got new staff. We've had staff turnover. Now we got to do it again, right? Funder reports, yeah, the mandated compliance counting reports, love those. Adding new programs and services, great. Executive director just said, we just got $25,000. We need a way to track this. Okay, let's add that too. And then we've got our other mandated data systems, the systems you got to figure out how to integrate with or do double data entry or get your data into. And so you can see where you've got this kind of ideal blueprint of how your day should go and how an ETO administrator should be using data and monitoring data, but these other things become distractions. How do you see, what's the saying, the trees through the woods or the forest through the trees, or, yeah. I couldn't get trees up there. It's about as close as I could get. But so you can see how it's easy to kind of miss and get distracted from, what's really important. And really, I'm going to talk about job security in terms of how you make yourself really, really valuable as an ETO administrator within your organization by helping your organization become high performing. So it's part of it is not getting distracted by these sorts of things. So, and some of these things may be basic. Oh shoot, a little anticlimactic. That wasn't supposed to start there, but okay. But so, we are basically, we're commissioned every time we talk about performance management and what it is. So this, I'm just going to get my bonus for the quarter here, and bear with me here. So a high-performing organization, let's just start there with what it is. We talked about this, the group yesterday, the presenters talked about this. So you have to have a clear goal or your objective or your outcome that you're working towards, identifying a strategy for how you're going to meet that goal, making sure that the services that you're providing are in alignment with that outcome and are capable of achieving that outcome. You have to have indicators, so it's not enough to just say our outcome is to see whether this teen graduates high school. That's a great outcome, but if you wait till the end of the year to see if that's going to happen, it's too late. They've already not graduated. So you have to have indicators that would demonstrate progress about whether they're on track or not. Analyzing data to determine what works and what doesn't work. Utilizing the data for continuous improvement. So we get the data, we potentially re-implement, we talk with staff. The biggest thing I want to make sure to talk about is that performance management is not meant to be punitive. It's not meant to, let's analyze data and find out who our slackers and our staff are, right? Nobody comes to nonprofits to work to just be slackers. They come to work in nonprofits because they're really, really passionate about, most of the time, about the organization and what they're doing. And so what I think performance management really should be about is finding the people who are doing things really, really well and finding out how to replicate that. And so I think it's really important that you you message that to your staff that performance management should not be scary. It's about we want to have a positive, high-performing environment for our organization and our clients because they deserve it. And then the last, again, you can't have much more of a secure job if you can find data and analysis and documentation of your organization's or your program's impact and use that to secure more funding for your organization. If you can do that, I got to say, that's probably about as secure as your job can get. So, and then this is not meant to just be a one-time list that goes through. If you hit it again, hopefully, yeah, there we go. Then we start from the top again. That's okay. We had a little malfunction with the clicker thingy, so. So again, so it's an iterative process. You go around and you do it again. So this is something everybody's probably seen. Hopefully you haven't just skipped over it. This is actually on our home login page, right? And so this is kind of our framework for what we consider how to achieve high performance in, in your organization. So most folks will start with good intentions. We really want to be serving our clients. We've been in business for many, many years, so of course we must be doing good. We have, a core set of funders who always fund us. That's great. The next step is you might want to just, okay, well maybe we need to be a little more data oriented. So how about we just at least get a data system and start tracking our outputs and knowing how many people we're serving and how often. The next step might be, okay, measuring outcomes, great. Many folks are probably already at that end now. This kind of momentum shift has been coming for a while now, so you're already measuring outcomes. But the question is, what are you doing with that data as you're measuring outcomes? It's great that you can say at the end of the day, we helped 30% of our clients get jobs, or 80% of the kids in our programs graduated high school. But are you using the data of the indicators leading up to that to manage your programs on a day-to-day basis? And that's really the key to where I want to help you guys establish kind of yourselves as, if you hit the thing, front and center of, here you guys are, super users, helping your organization go from the counting inputs to becoming a high-performing organization. And what are so I'm going to talk about some of the things that you guys can do to help your organization, and no matter what role you're in. And so that's the other thing I want to talk about is, if you get the next one, oh, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, we'll start here. So again, these are things that hopefully, these aren't news flashes, but just wanted to kind of cover. So what are some tips to becoming a super user? What are some of the characteristics that you need to really be a good super user in your organization? So the first is obviously patience. You don't want to pull your hair out. You don't want to establish a drinking problem. It's hard. It's hard work. I get it. It's okay. I've been there. So the next is time management. So like I said, the slide I showed that has all of your different roles and then all of the other distractions that get in the way of the retraining and the merging duplicates and the data quality, really setting time aside for yourself from a time management perspective to say, for these 2 hours, this is really where I'm going to dig in and I'm going to analyze the data. Even if the program managers, I can't get everybody else to look at it, I'm going to look at it and I'm going to put it in front of them so that they can't ignore it. So time management, setting boundaries. I think it's really important, and again, I felt this in the organization I was in as the director of IT. I didn't manage programs, but I felt a lot of times like, I was being held responsible for the program outcomes, and there's a very clear limit. Like, I can inform you and I can put the data in front of you, but the programs and the program managers have to be responsible for that aspect of it. So I think setting boundaries in terms of what your roles are. I'm here to enable you and provide you with information, but at the end of the day, programs have to be responsible for themselves. I think that also goes with setting limits. I thought I took that off of there, but it's a little redundant. Establishing benchmarks. So, nothing is ever going to be perfect out of the gate, but you have to start somewhere. We do this with, we have new staff, and like after 2 weeks, I just said to this new girl, I want you to do a demo for me, and I can see like the deer in the headlights look, what do you mean you want me to demo for you? I said, I don't care where you are, but I need to see where we're working with, We have to benchmark you, we have to see how close we are, and then we can start to establish some goals to try to move you up and get you to improve from where you are now. So benchmarks are not scary, they're just, hey, let's establish a baseline and see if we can improve from there. Managing up, everybody knows what this means, right? I won't go into detail like David Hunter did about executive leadership, because I love executive leadership in nonprofit organizations, unlike David Hunter. But sometimes you need to manage up, and what that means is, sometimes you need to help again, enable your management team to make good decisions by putting good data in front of them that they can use to inform their decisions. Let's just leave it at that. Positive enablement is, in my mind, something that means sometimes, okay, I'm going to speak for myself here. I'm a little bit of a control freak, right? And so sometimes, like when I was the data manager, I was like, my data, nobody can do it. I'm the only one who can make changes. I'm the only one who can, right? Sometimes it's good to identify some other super users in your organization. You may have a program manager or maybe a data entry person or something who just seems to pick this stuff up. Use them. Use them to help you with some of the other tasks that we talked about that kind of takes your time away from some of the really important stuff. So don't be afraid to enable some other staff in your organization to help you with these tasks. And then finally, again, have to put the plug in for this. You've got to get and stay connected. And what that means is to other ETO users. And we've got lots of outlets for that, from our newsletters, which typically come out pre-release cycle. We have user groups, which happen nationally in different cities. And if you're interested in having one, go talk to Caitlin. She's got a table out there. She'd be happy to set one up in your city. We've got an online community. I don't know if everybody knows, if you go, when you're logged in ETO software, down at the bottom, there's a little training link. There's a something link, and then there's support link. You should know that. And then there's a community link, and then there's online conversations going on there, so I would get plugged in there. We have advisory boards. We have an online advisory board. We've got a product advisory board. And then I don't know if folks know that we have a usability group as well. So folks who are actually asked before new releases get out into public consumption, they actually go in and they test things out and they give scores. And if certain features don't pass certain scores, they don't get released, or they get tweaked and changed so that they are more usable. So a feature comes out. Had this happen, you're like, what were they thinking? Like, why would they just not put a start button on it? All you need to do is make it start, right? If you want to have input into that, again, raise your hand. We can get you on a usability group. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about, performance management. It should happen at. Oh, did you start my timer?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. So what we're going to talk about is that performance management, to be a really good super user, really good ETO administrator, is that performance management should really happen at all levels. From your staff, so ground level staff have to be monitoring the progress of individual participants and using the data to inform their day-to-day practices. Program managers, getting them to monitor the data on a regular basis to manage their programs, and then at your executive level. And I'm going to break these out. So first I'm going to talk about staff. And one of the key things about staff, I think, is to get them invested in the software. And I think there's a number of different ways you can do that. First of all is just ease of use. Make it something that is as user-friendly as possible, that's familiar as possible. I know a lot of customers who've been with us for a while have not taken advantage of the HTML that you can embed in like a home page where you can use your colors and your look and your feel and your logos, and you can embed links. So I'm a really big proponent of home pages and making them user-friendly. Over the last year and a half maybe, we've released dashboards. We have staff dashboards, participant dashboards, which have like little parts and pieces. You can even set dashboards to be standard. Like you can basically create a template that says, every staff role should have a template that looks like this, whereas every program manager role should have a template that looks like this. So, and then you can also default it. So they're not, the other thing I hear sometimes is, well, there's too many options. Well, if you want to take the option away, there's also the ability that you can set your dashboard as the home page for your staff. If you have questions how to do that, that's why I got Emily up here. So dashboards, making sure they're utilizing those. I've got some, again, in my sneak peek, we're going to talk about some new additional dashboards coming out. That's really exciting. There's a workflow function in the software that I don't know that a lot of folks know about. Now, again, for those of you who've been here a while, you're going to say, I can't use it because I know I can't use it for everything. But, but there are certain things that you can use it for. Assessment, if you're primarily working in assessments, points of service, and referrals, it works really, really well, especially if you think of like from an intake perspective, the workflow of, okay, I add somebody to the database, and then what do I want them to do next? I want to do a needs assessment. You can have it go to there. Then from there, what do you want to do? You want to document your services. You can go to the very next page. And when you've done that, then you want to refer them to the programs they belong to. From that perspective, it works really, really great. And then also, Emily and her crew actually suggested we put this on there as well, that you can actually manage the site navigation, so you can basically, I don't know, do you want to touch on this one? I'm sorry, I don't know if your thing's turned on.
Something that we notice a lot in customer support is a lot of folks have a ton of stuff on their navigation bar, and you don't need it all. And a lot of administrators, you don't know what you need, you don't know what you don't need, so you just leave it on there. And I really encourage you, if you're not sure, to call customer support and say, what on this don't I need, and take it off there. Because one of the first things staff say is the software's overwhelming, there's too many options, and it's very basic. I think a lot of you who've been around for a long time, are you kidding me? You're telling me about managed site navigation? But we do see a lot of organizations who it's a really basic task, and you're just not sure, and so you haven't done it. So I definitely encourage you to take a look at that.
And from that, I was just going to point out, as one of the stories is, so SocialSolutions, about 2 to 3 years ago, we moved to our own personal client management and accounting system is NetSuite. And one of the stupidest features I've ever seen is that they have the ability to change the color on the back. But meaning, like, you can actually just pick, do you want it in blue, or do you want it in black, or do you want it in, and they even have like team colors, like do you want the, Texas A&M colors, do you want, and there's even one called rainbow, if you go to the next thing, that, if staff leave their desk for a minute, other staff will go in and change them, it's called, you got rainbowed, it's like, you got spammed, but so it's ugly, it's funny, but the one thing is that from a NetSuite perspective, it makes people feel like they have a choice. Oh, I can control the look and the feel of what I'm working with, even if it is kind of ugly. And again, I just want to give an example of some customizable home pages. If you're not familiar with HTML, and that's kind of above where you're at, which is where I'm at, is if you go to the help manual and you type in home page, it'll actually give you links, and it'll even give you a template to start from to make a home page that looks something like that. And then the configurable dashboard. And again, maybe in the Q&A at the end, we'll open it up if folks have questions for Emily on that. So, one of the key things that I love about ETO software is that everything that you put into the system, staff can get back out. And I think that is very empowering. I will never, ever forget when I worked for a domestic violence program, and the shelter program specifically, and we had to put data into an HMIS system, the Baltimore City HMIS system, and I went to the people and I was like, okay, if we're going to put all this data in, how do I get information back out? Like if I want to see somebody's case notes or case records, and they said, oh, you don't. Like, why on earth would I put all of this information as a case manager into a system and not being able to pull something back out that would just remind me what I did with them a week ago? So I think selling the point of ETO software is not just something that you're mandated to do, that you're forced to do. It's you put the data in, and guess what? You as a staff person have access to see everything that's been done with that client record that should, again, help you, inform you in the way you're working with that client. The other is, and again, we saw a lot of these reports yesterday in Kate's, but this is an ETO report that you can run right from that report I just showed you there. That's the review. The one before this is the review participant efforts page. And then right at the top, there's a little link that says ETO report. If you click on that, for every outcome that you're tracking, staff can run reports that look like this. And we know some groups actually, they'll print these out and they'll put them in front of the clients that they're working with, to say, hey, you're getting really down on yourself, but I've been actually monitoring your progress, and look, we're actually doing not so bad. So it can be used as a tool to either encourage or to maybe say, hey, it's time for an intervention. I've let you kind of, go on the downward trend for enough now. It's kind of like what David Hunter was talking about yesterday. It's not where you say, oh, well, that stinks. You went down again. No, it's jumping in and intervening at the point where you start to see something's not going right. And so again, having staff have access to reports like this, I think is really, really empowering, and you need to, your role is to sell that to them, that this is important, that you understand. Now, your role as an administrator is to make sure that they have outcomes like this to work towards. So for example, our point of service screen, hopefully most of you are familiar with this, They can be set up to track things like, did I provide assistance? Yes, no, whatever. Again, we all have those. I'm not judging. But it really, I think it speaks volumes, and your staff will be more invested in the data and the day-to-day work that they're doing if they have something that looks more like, the developing a relationship for action. I mean, think about this. How much brain power goes into the previous outcome? Oh, provided INR services. Yep, sure did. Versus, wow, I need to think about this. I've been working with this person for a while, and here are all the indicators that would demonstrate whether or not I'm developing. This is just more thought-provoking. And again, I think we want our staff thinking about their work they're doing and being intentional about the work they're doing. And so I think it's really important if you don't have these kind of value-driven, tracking progress over time outcomes, that you think about implementing some. And if you have questions how to do that, that's what we're here for. Okay, so let's move on from staff. And again, I would love during the open forum time if folks have other ideas and want to share, please, again, I am self-proclaimed not the expert. So, you guys are all, we're all experts. How about that collectively? All right, so program managers. How do you get your program managers invested in managing and monitoring their caseloads and programs? Emily, if you go to the next one. That's right. The right one? Program? Yeah, okay. So from the beginning, even at the program level, it's really important to have executive sponsorship. An executive director who you can tell is actually, clued in and paying attention. Again, I'll give it an example from us internally at SocialSolutions. When Steve came back, over the summer, NetSuite was somewhat new to him, and he was like a monkey with a hammer, like, what's this do? But the first thing he started noticing, after he kind of getting his hands around it was, I'm not seeing, so we track like activities, and customer support tracks everything in there. We track accounting, everything gets tracked and documented. And I don't want to call them out, but since I'm leaving that team, I can say it. So the sales team weren't exactly up to par with where they should be in terms of their interactions and activities. And so Steve just did a simple thing. Every week, again, wasn't punitive. Every week he said, he sent out an email, hey, I've been checking the activities in NetSuite. Sent it out to the entire company. Just want to recognize these 3 people have been rock stars for putting activity in for the week. That's all it took. Within 2 weeks, sales folks competitive anyway. Everybody's putting all their activities and notes in, and just that simple little change kind of changed the behaviors of the folks in our organization. Incorporation of ETO internal processes. Again, this is probably the thing that is the most awakening during the implementation. We don't just build the software out. We actually have to figure out how it relates to the rest of our internal processes. Yes. And if you haven't done that, then we need to think about that. So if you have internal worksheets and documentation that says, it goes from Judy in accounting to this person, this program, to the, make sure that ETO is specifically outlined as part of that process so that folks are clear about what needs to be done and how it's documented. Here's another one. These are some actually I stole from Caitlin. She talks about these in her ETO administrator groups, but actually writing ETO goals into your staff plans and including as part of job descriptions. We get folks ask us all the time, well, can you give us some examples? I mean, we have examples of ETO job descriptions or ETO administrator descriptions. We'd be happy to share those with you. And then Caitlin also, I didn't bring it, but she also talked about goal sheets. Even for yourself as an administrator, kind of documenting for yourself, okay, almost every single data point. What's the data point? When will it be entered? So is this a daily thing? Is this a weekly thing? Is this a monthly thing? Where will it be entered? So in ETO, is this an assessment? Is it a point of service? And then how will you ensure it's done? And again, maybe this isn't something maybe you do forever, but maybe this is something you start to do, and then you maybe gently hand it over to your program manager to say, hey, I kind of started this, but this might be great if you could start to monitor this for your team and make sure the data is getting entered when it's supposed to be, where it's supposed to be, and so we don't have any problems at the end of the month and everybody's scrambling when I don't have my monthly reports done. So ETO goal sheets are, that's all right, you can go to the next one. So again, these are some things that Caitlin covers. These are ones I always talk about as well in trainings with folks. These are my recommended reports for rock stars. So just basic level log in, log out report. I know you might be like, okay, what's performance management about that? I'll tell you. I had a group call me and say, I'm sorry, ETO is just not working. We've tried really, really hard. The staff says it's too hard. We can't do it. I said, okay, can we do one thing? They said, sure. Let's run the log in, log out report. Nobody logged in 6 months. So we talked about some retraining and what we might need to do and how just especially at the very beginning of a new program rollout, really, really important that you're monitoring access and usage and that people are actually trying to use the system. Program enrollment report, again, just kind of basic. Are you seeing as many folks enrolling as you would expect? Demographic quality, this is actually a somewhat new report in our Webby report suite. It'll actually give you every single demographic and the percentage that each is filled out. So 50% of race is filled out, and then you can actually drill in and see who has it completed and who does it. So you can take it back to folks and say, we need 100%, it can't be 50%. We had somebody who worked for us previously who worked for a customer called NPiece, and he talked about how he used to do report cards for folks. And so like, can you imagine like going to a program director's meeting and be like, here's everybody's report card. Sorry, you're only at 50% this week. You're only at 80% this week. Kind of bringing that visibility to the data quality, I think, again, hopefully will spark folks to start to pay attention to their programs and their program data quality. Another one, and again, most of these have to do, again, we're not at performance management yet, but again, if you don't have the data in when it needs to be in and where it needs to be in, the rest doesn't matter. So I've kind of started out with some of the basics. Assessment completion report. This is another somewhat new one, but it's in Crystal. It's not in Webby version. So if you go to assessment reports all the way to the bottom, you can actually see the percentage of certain assessments that are completed for everybody enrolled in a program. So if it's mandated that everybody in the workforce development program has a workforce job plan, which is an assessment, you can actually run a report that'll show you who actually has it done and who doesn't have it done in your program. Review staff efforts. I mean, that should be self-explanatory. But then there's another one, top 10 staff with efforts. So again, kind of that Steve Butts mentality, let me just monitor and see and recognize folks who are actually making an effort to put data in the system. But then getting to more of the performance management, there's actually a staff box score report. So it'll actually show you which staff seem to be the most effective, who has demonstrated the most incremental change with their clients over a certain period of time. Those are the things that I think really, I don't know how a program manager would live without that. Like, wow, and again, not punitive. Let's focus on the folks that seem to be doing really, really well, and let's talk to them about what they're doing and see if we can do more of it. These bottom ones, other report ideas, these are ones that Caitlin had suggested. Days since last contact, that's a standard report. Days between program start and assessment. Again, these start to get into more of like compliance type things, again, related to certain processes. We intake them, but within 24 hours they have to have this done. These are good reports to track those sorts of things. And then again, I apologize that the print is so small up here, but again, for those of you who've been around a while, these are not new. But so the top is our ETO report, where you can actually see who's making progress over time. This is an aggregate for your program. Who's increasing, how much time is being spent, how many staff are working on it, how many clients, what's the average amount of time you're working with each client. And the idea is, I remember, again, as a client, I would go in and I'd tell Steve, I ran it for the whole year, and I don't know what this is telling me. And he was like, you're missing the point. You got to run it on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and it's about demonstrating, showing last week's report next to this week's report and saying, did we improve from where we were last week? And so, again, maybe you can't get your program managers to log in and run these reports, but you can run them and you can leave them on their desk or you can email them to them. There are ways for you to kind of get that information to them. And then at the bottom, I don't know, how many folks in here have used the ETO analyzer? Anybody? Ooh, a couple of brave folks. Good stuff. All right, we've got another, I'm not going to ruin it, but we have another announcement coming at lunchtime about the ETO analyzer, so stay tuned for that. If you're not using it, you may start to rethink about using it. But the ETO analyzer is the ability to actually track kind of more of on a trend basis how your program as a whole is doing at certain outcomes, and that's what's demonstrated there. And this actually just shows one outcome. You can actually graph multiple outcomes on the same screen. And so you can start to see kind of, again, it's not an exact correlation, but you can at least see from a graphical visual perspective whether things seem to be trending in the same direction. I know, is Pace here? Is Jill Guffey in this room? No, she must have went to another one. They actually built a report that's somewhat very similar to this. I think it was before the ETO Analyzer came out, but they track things like, so they work with, is it at-risk girls, or I don't know if they're in the juvenile system, or yes, okay. So, but so they track things like school attendance, they track behavior, they track a bunch of different things, but they very specifically wanted to say, we want to see if, attendance is somewhat, as their attendance goes down, do we also see behavior going down, or as this measure goes up or down? And so they literally have these graphs that put like 6 things all on the same thing, and they try to identify trends of things that seem to be related that are going on in the girl's life. So this is an example of an ETO assessment report. So, not everything that you track in terms of an outcome is a point of service. You can use assessments to track, things quarterly, monthly, annually. But the thing I like about the ETO assessment report, for those who've never run it, is it doesn't just give you, so here's the first page, is this top section here. So it shows you the average score for everybody who took this assessment the first time, and then the average score for everybody who took it the second time. And so obviously you can see things improve. But what I love about this report is that you actually have the ability to also, again, putting finger quotes, correlate this to certain activities or points of service. So what you can do is then choose a point of service, whether it's an attendance-based outcome or whether it's a one-on-one case management type service, and you can actually have it plot it for you here. So presumably, and what you see on this axis is the amount of change in the assessment, and here is how much time was spent on the, that point of service or activity specifically. And so presumably what you would see is the more change is correlated to more time. And so that's kind of demonstrated here. And each one of the little dots represents an actual person and their data. So, the person who seems to have shown the most change, we've actually spent the most time with them. And it gives it to you both in time, in minutes here, as well as in the number of contacts here. So the instances of service, for those of you who don't actually track time. And then in the corner there just gives you kind of the detailed breakdown. But so ETO assessment report, yeah, Forrest.
So is this by score you mean a score for the entire assessment?
No, you would have to pick one question within an assessment. So this example here is actually from the home inventory, and we're looking at the total score for language stimulation. So you're right, it doesn't, what you would do is presumably you would take the total score of the assessment. So you can only do it for one question at a time.
Actually, isn't it it's 2 or 4 questions?
2 or 4 questions at a time? Okay. Sorry.
But does it only work for numeric answer questions, or does it work for other types of?
Works for weighted assessment questions. Yeah.
Great, thank you. This is the ETO staff report that I was talking about. So do you know who your most effective staff are? Do you know why they're most effective? Again, ETO is not going to tell you the why necessarily, but that's for the conversations that your program managers should be having with your staff. So again, what you would see here is the number of participants that they worked with. Gains means, if you think of that value-driven scale, how many increases or steps they're achieving here, what their averages, their number of efforts. Again, some of this is this is related to Steve's baseball lingo. He comes up with a batting score, box score here for the percentage of wins in client interactions, which is great if you understand baseball. So again, this is, I think, a good report. I think we're going to talk, yeah, sure. It is actually under, is it under program administration? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's called ETO staff is what it's called. Yeah.
All right, so how do you get your executives interested in all this stuff? First of all, how many people in here are executive directors before I offend everybody in the room? A couple of folks? Okay, good. Okay. I'm going to offend away. Just kidding. No, so yeah, that's not. Oh, so I think my point, okay, sorry, go back. So yeah, so my point to this was going to be that, you know, executive directors are very, very busy. They're fundraising, they're managing a lot of things, so they're not gonna have time to go in and run these reports, and so it's gonna essentially be your job to do this for them. So I think what this was is just kind of highlighting some things that you can do, you know, that are available to you all as administrators to help them do their jobs better. So from the standard reports, Query Wizard pulling out the raw data, assessment survey flat file. A lot of folks use that to extract data when they need to give to like evaluation teams, things like that. ETO reports, live office reports as well. Great for executive directors. We had somebody recently, I don't know if they're in the room, but we're talking about, you know, well, the executive director just wants to go to SharePoint and be able to pull the report from there with updated information. And so we talked about, well, you could create, you know, if you create the report in, you know, Excel or Word and do a live office sync, put that document in SharePoint. All they have to do is open it, and then there's a refresh button, and it will refresh automatically with the query data from ETO. So that's a cool little tip. And then obviously our web intelligence reports. Who in here is using or has ETO results? Oh, good number of folks. Hopefully you'll be attending the session. We have Abby and Jamie talking about ETO results and tips, so that'll be a good one. I'm not the expert, please don't ask me. But some other things that you can do, pinning these reports to their favorites or to their homepage. Don't make them go dig and look for them. We talked about storing live office reports on a shared drive. So again, they can pull it, push the button to refresh the data, and it's, you know, live with information. We have a reporting dashboard. And then also, this is, again, I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself, but we have the ability to schedule sending Webby reports via email coming in this next release. So you can build the report, you can schedule it to send to your executive director once a week, once a month, you know, whatever the frequency is, you can set that up for them.
Yeah. So for live office, you said that SharePoint an alternative to doing it in SharePoint, or?
No. Yeah, I mean, you could, it would be an Excel file typically, and you could share, you know, you could save it wherever, somewhere that would be accessible to both you and your executive director.
Yep. But the report has to be saved in some kind of common share. Like, we can't control that. You would have to determine where the shared environment was for you guys to both access it. Yeah. All right, next. So this is just showing live office for those who haven't used it. Again, you can take a Word document, you can take an Excel spreadsheet, and basically you create queries using, you can use results as well as old school Query Wizard to create queries to feed data that sits in an Excel spreadsheet. And I should be looking at Kevin Deem because you're my expert, you and Ellen over there. Make sure I'm not speaking out of turn. And essentially build the formulas that would drive a spreadsheet that looks like this. And then you'll see at the top where it's highlighted, all you would do, again, once this is saved off, your executive director, whoever, can just come in, click and refresh all objects. It will refresh and repull all of the query data from ETO, and all of your data here would update and reflect live data. Sorry about that. All right, next, again, business objects. Don't have a whole lot to say about that other than, woohoo, everybody should use it. This is an example of our reporting dashboard, which some folks are kind of piloting now, but I think it's coming out in more of a full release or general availability in our next release as well. The ability to actually pin multiple reports on a single kind of dashboard. And again, this would be great for an executive director, have them log in and boop, oh, there it is in my face. There's my dashboard of everything that's going on across the organization. I think this is going to be a fantastic way to get them involved and invested in the data on a day-to-day basis. So. Well, some folks are using it now, but
it'll be released. This is a little bit different than actually what we're releasing. I think this is something that's coming farther ahead, actually.
Okay, should check with you first.
Yeah.
And then again, I'm gonna just leave it at this, and I'm gonna say, because again, I don't want to give away all the secrets and get yelled at by Steve, but again, lunchtime, ETO analytics coming, and I'll let Steve speak more to that. So some common misconceptions, you know, we track a lot of data. Does that make us a performance-driven organization? I would ask the question back. So you can track a lot of, go ahead. I would ask the question back, do the staff and leadership have access to the data? Well, you might say, well, yeah, we use ETO. Of course they have access. Okay, but are they really accessing the data on a day-to-day basis? And again, that I would see that as kind of your job and your role to be prompting them and pushing them to make sure that they are. And then the second question, are they using the data to drive their decisions? If yes, then I'd say, yep, great. I'd say you're on your way to becoming a performance-driven organization. Capturing data does not necessarily make you performance-driven. All right, we love to monitor the effectiveness of certain staff because we suspect they aren't doing their jobs well. Again, I think I've honed in on this point a couple of times. It's not meant to be, performance management is not meant to be punitive. You don't want to scare everybody off. The idea is to, again, they don't come to the jobs for the pay, I'm guessing, in most cases. So the idea is to find the folks who are doing their jobs really, really well and see if you can clone them. And then the last question here, common misconceptions. So we just went through a strategic planning process. We implemented many changes based on the data. Does that make us performance driven? What do you think? Strategic planning, we make... Sorry. I'm not suggesting strategic planning is a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying. My point here is that strategic planning often happens, what, once every 5 years, once every 10 years? Performance management is really a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month. It's not a one-shot deal. So if you really want to be a performance-driven organization, you really have to incorporate it into your daily lives, not just every 10 years. So if you're interested in how your organization rates, meaning, you know, again, we kind of feel like we are, but we're not sure. I feel like we're moving in the right direction. Again, another kind of tool to put in front of you that you kind of make you look like the rock star and know it all when you go back to your executive team is you can go in and you can run, Jeff's talked about this, and a number of the folks that were here yesterday are on this alliance, the Alliance for Effective Social Investing. And they actually came together with something called the Social Investment Risk Assessment. And so this is actually an assessment where you go in and you fill out details that would indicate whether or not your organization seems to be a risky or non-risky investment for a social investor. So, and what that relates to is, are you basically a high-performing, performance-driven organization? If you go to the next slide real quick, here are the different domains. So, tactical data. Do you have data? Does the data have integrity? Does it have an outcomes focus? There's a next domain, which is, you know, are you actually using the data at a strategic level? And then there's a program value. So are you actually having program impact? And do you have the capacity? Remember, he talked about this yesterday as well. Do you have the capacity to deliver the services? So you might say, you know, again, we were doing it really, really great with this really small, you know, one-block neighborhood, but then we decided we did it so well, we decided we want to do it for everybody. Well, suddenly you don't have the capacity necessary to deliver all of those programs and services with fidelity. You know, so this is it's an online tool. You can go to the web link that was on the thing right before, alleffective.org, and you can try it out. Again, it's technically supposed to be done by, you know, a third party, you know, coming in, observer. You know, it's not going to hurt you to go and just say, hey, I wonder where we relate, and, you know, take it for yourself and use it again as a benchmark for yourselves in your organization. So here's where I guess, before I guess we move on, any questions? Because this next part we were going to get into more of the like ETO day-to-day. Did you know these tips? Did you know these? We're going to talk about some of the new features coming out. But I guess any questions in terms of things I've talked about, things you can do for your staff, program managers, executive leadership to make sure that kind of they're invested in, you know, moving on that track of becoming a high-performing organization. Any questions? Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's a question exactly, but we have cheat sheets for each program, and, you know, we revise them every year, and we go that, and so forth. Right. So, now what? Right. You know, we meet the programs every beginning of the fiscal year, these changes are happening, these things, you know, and we have open calling, but each time people do actually right, individual staff, but for the most part, what I keep hearing is we don't have time. And, you know, when I say someone to navigate, work with that,
And so do your program managers and executive leadership, do they accept that answer, that there's not enough time?
I mean, they do, but they don't, I mean, they do, and they want us to do what we can to make it happen, but we're also, you know, losing staff because we're losing funding and people are doing 3 different jobs and,
Right.
you know, putting in all kinds of hours that they're not being paid for, and here we are saying you have to monitor your data, and they kind of go,
Right.
Some people get it that the data is sort of keeps us alive because we can use it with our funders and we can use it to feedback on what the programs are doing and how guests and clients are moving through the process and how effective we are. And other people are just sort of going through the day-to-day and they really are more focused on the interpersonal activities that they have with the people that they work with, and
Right.
we just can't get them there.
And again, I think it's really, we don't want to take that away. This isn't about spending less time with clients. So I think it's really important. However, I think, you know, if I went into a demo or a training and I just said, well, I'm just going to wing it, I'm just going to walk in and just do it, I would not be as effective as if I had gone in and I actually maybe went to your website, I went to your blueprint, I looked at your setup, I tried to understand you. Okay, now I get a good feel for what Crittenden's really about. I would do a much better training in working with you. And I think it's selling that to the staff. Look, I know it might be 5 minutes more, but take that 5 minutes to use the data that we're tracking to you know, inform your next interaction with them. You know what I mean?
I think program manager before I have staff meetings with people, you know, my program managers were focused on and they whatever makes you busy.
Do program managers log in and run their own reports?
Some don't, yeah.
Yeah, and I think staff know that. Again, it's the, like, if they're not going to look at it, why would I care? You know?
That we haven't thought about. Leadership knows that, and leadership's trying to work with this person, but the staff doesn't.
Right. Like if your program managers, hey, in like casual conversation, hey, I ran an ETO report and I didn't see much going on. They'd be like, you look at that? What? Okay, you know, and you know, jobs on the line or something. You know, I think that would.
Yeah, it's a flip on that.
Right. But again, you know, I don't want to sit up here and make it seem like it's easy. We talked about that at the very beginning. This is hard. And not just working with your clients and changing their behaviors, but changing the behaviors of staff in your organizations. Hard, right? So.
I think another thing is really to be able to recognize staff who are doing it well and who are, even if it's just like she was saying, when Steve came on board, he started sending out a quick email once a week and said, these 3 people are doing a great job entering their data, and that really seemed to take an effect. I mean, if you could get your executive director to do that, that would be great. If not, even just you doing it and sending something out and acknowledging this person has done a good job. I think LAYC, I'm not sure if they still do this, they did a ETO user of the month, and they would run some reports and they would have a different criteria for each month, and then they would get, you know, a little prize, a gift card or something.
For a while,
yeah.
Well, she has more clients than I do. I can't have as many. I mean,
well, yeah.
Justifying
why they didn't win.
Well, you look at the average then.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
I work at LOC. We moved away from doing this user in a month and instead we're doing programming. Show which programs have been putting in their data.
So it's a team effort. I like that. So I don't know if everybody heard what he was saying is that he works for LAYC and they moved away from an employee of the month and it moved to a program of the month. And so it becomes more of a team effort. And so that's another great idea. Thank you.
And that will help equalize that she has more contacts.
Yeah. I think another thing is actually we in our customer support department we do little super support star of the week, and we have a different set of criteria for each week. So one would be most phone calls answered, but then another one might be fastest resolution time. So they could have fewer calls, but they might have answered them more quickly or something like that. So if you can come up with different criteria that might not always be based on the number of cases that you have assigned to you. Wendy, did you?
It's interesting. We have one program that is a pay-for-performance program, and every effort actually triggers a bill to the state to pay for that service. So if you sign the enrollment form, you get paid $500 to that client or $250, and then if you get that client a job, you get $1,000 from the state. And that program is the program where we have performance reports. The data is put in there. The program director knew that one staff was like fudging their time because they would meet with clients and use like 80 hours a week, and obviously they're not working 80 hours a week. So actually knows how to get in the system, look at reports, and it's amazing. But it's sort of like at the same time that you have to generate a bill, you have to show all this work instead of just getting hundreds. They do a lot more while they have a QA person to run reports, so I don't have to. So they did have to hire people to manage the data. They didn't do it at the beginning. They realized it's important.
All of the parts of it, just so that.
I believe we're.
Jeff's gonna. Yeah.
She was just asking if we're going to be distributing the presentations, and I believe
Jeff's going to put a link up on the website, so you can go and download it from the website. So yeah. So for those who, I should have said at the beginning, those of you furiously scribbling, and I apologize for texting, but I just found out my daughter's vomiting.
Oh.
Fun times.
Any other questions? She deals with her sick child. Okay.
All right, so we're going to get into a little bit more of the tactical stuff again. For those you've been using for a while, you might be like, ugh, or maybe you forgot about some things. Sometimes you get into your day-to-day use patterns and you forget. So let's jump right in. That's all right. So demographics. We talked about the demographic quality report, which is somewhat new, so I want to make sure folks knew about that. Again, that's found under View Reports. It's one of the Webby reports. There's also another feature that I don't know that folks know about. Sometimes you get to the end of the fiscal year and then somebody decides, well, we want to start tracking this demographic, and then you're like, well, great. Well, what do we do about all the clients who are already in the program that that don't have this demographic? What you can do is you create the demographic. And then rather than going to each client record individually and opening them up and adding the new record, save it, opening the next one, add, save, you can actually pull up the entire list of clients in a program and pick that one demographic, and then basically it becomes just like a sheet. Here's everybody in my program, here's that one demographic, and I fill it in for all of them, and I hit save, and it will update all of their client records at one time. So add demographic by group is a cool little tip of the trade, yeah.
You have people who were like for fiscal year fresh, people who weren't active at that time but were active as a fiscal year.
It's only for currently active people. A lot of folks do batch uploads very frequently to update their data. I know some people are scared of it and other people use it all the time. Yeah, so I mean, there you go. See, did you see that?
We paid her.
Waving her arms around. We've planted people in the crowd. So, I mean, I think once you've done it a couple times, I think you'll find you're much more comfortable with it, and you can, if you're doing it on a weekly or monthly basis or something, and if not, you can call customer support for help with it, but that's a good way.
We changed our data between the time we downloaded it and updated it. So
Yeah.
we were the bear. Whenever I mention it again, people go, no.
Look away.
And for the demographic quality report, does that get into custom demographics?
It does.
Okay.
Yep.
Good question. Anybody else have tips for demographics they want to share with the group? I know I'm putting everybody on the spot. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask what the demographic data quality report gives you.
It's broken out by program, and then it'll literally list every single demographic, and then it'll show you the number of people in the program, and then how many people are completed, and then it gives you a percentage. I should have cut and pasted a little snippet in there what it looks like. I apologize. And then you can drill in. It has a drill in where it'll actually show you the details behind it, who's got it completed, who doesn't have it completed. Rachel?
Is there, that report is awesome. The only issue is that it doesn't.
No issues, only no, I'm just kidding. I forgot to put that out there at the beginning. No, I'm just kidding.
From you, April, is that it doesn't tell you demographics it tells you every demographic, not if that, so if that demographic isn't in that program, it comes up as 0. Is there a way to scope it down so you only get the demographics that are for that program? Because then I get confused and I yell at people for stuff that they weren't supposed to fill in anyway.
We do. I actually did just put an enhancement request like 2 weeks ago for that, so it's something that's been noted for sure.
Way to put us on the spot. Now we have to say yes, Rachel. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anybody? Does somebody else over here? Yeah.
You do the same thing that you're talking about, add demographic by groups. What's this really?
We do a multiple participant effort. Are you talking about just updating multiple clients at the same time, or?
I'm talking about, think of an Excel spreadsheet where you have the name of the client, you have the duration of the trading, and you have the narrative notes.
You can actually do an upload.
You can do batch upload for that,
data.
but are you trying to update the information, or are you just trying to upload it for the first time?
I'm trying to update it, change your compliance.
The participant efforts batch upload does allow you to upload new efforts, and you could have them. It's in a spreadsheet format, so it's just the participant name and date of birth or something, and then date of contact, contact location, the value for the point of service, and the notes, and you can have it all in one spreadsheet and upload it. I'm not sure. And then, obviously there's the multiple participant efforts, but are you talking about editing data?
That's already been
I'm talking about editing new data.
Oh, okay.
So that you don't have to go in individual by individual.
Right.
Piece of the information you want to edit.
Is different. Okay, so yeah, multiple participant efforts is all the same data for everybody. So, but the upload, you could do it that way. And there is a template that will generate out of the batch upload that'll give you the Excel spreadsheet with all the column headers that you need. So it would be, if you have it in an Excel spreadsheet, or your staff want to enter it there and then upload it, you could do that. Forrest?
Yeah, I know it's just a simple thing, but for the newer people in the software, just remember that you can create demographics that are scoped to a particular program, so that if you don't need that demographic in all programs, so it doesn't appear everywhere. It appears in the programs that need that particular demographic or program group. Yeah, that helps to avoid confusion.
Absolutely. Yep, I love that. Great point. I talk about that all the time. The scoping. That's great. Yeah.
I had a question about why your demographics are different family members, and then we have, so the example is we have adults and children, and children don't require phone numbers, but if you ever try to update a child's demographic information, it tells you that a phone number is required. And is there anything to do about that? You're shaking your head like you're well aware.
I think we're aware of it. He's talking about updating them, not adding them. So there is a way, when you add them, there's a way to sort of hide those fields based on the relationship. There's not currently a way to do it via update. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned before that the ETO assessment report can be used to correlate changes and outcomes with time and or number of contacts. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and can it be used to correlate both of those at the same time, or do you choose correlate with time or with contacts or some other?
It gives them both, and it's, again, whether or not your organization actually tracks time spent, but it'll give you both on the report. It gives you, here's how many minutes, and if you don't have any minutes, it won't show anything. And at the bottom will be the instances of contacts. So it does both automatically in the report. You can only pick one point of service at a time. So I can't look at, is it attendance or is it my one-on-one case management? I would have to pick one, run that report, save it off, run for the other report, and then maybe put them next to each other. So does that answer your question? Yeah, okay, great. All right, some other tips of the trade, assessments. Again, just some things that folks may not know about is that you can actually lock down an assessment after a certain number of days. So, for data quality, you go and run your report 3 months later and you're like, why did the data change? Folks are going back in and editing or maybe updating. So you can actually set it, and again, it's under managed surveyor assessment. It's one of the, there's like this many rules at the top. If you go up there, one of the things is you can either put update after 0 days, which locks it immediately after it's saved, or you can put in a number, 7 days, 30 days, however many days you want, and then after that it becomes locked. There's actually a new feature coming out. Maybe we should jump ahead and talk about that now as well.
There's a new feature that will actually allow you to manage who can update an assessment that's been locked. So if you just want a supervisor, for example, to be able to update a particular assessment response, you can go in and choose who can update the response. It is per assessment response. So that's something that's coming out in our next release, which is in a couple weeks, actually. Yeah?
I just wanted to clarify, with the adopting assessment after a certain amount of days, it'll be after a certain amount of days from the last time you update, not when you first take it. So if I allow my staff to take and it launches after 15 days, if on the 14th day I've updated that assessment, it starts counting from that 14th day on to 15 days.
Is that true? I actually thought it was based on the assessment date at the top, so we'll look into that and give, Lauren's taking a note back there.
Yeah, we take assessments multiple times a year, so every quarter or something. Is it possible to lock the assessment right after they take it and then allow it to come back up after 2 months or 3 months?
With the new managed locking, could you do
That,
that?
well, you would have to do it manually. There's not an automatic way to do that. Yeah. Ruth Ann, did you?
Yeah, we at Sherlock programs have so kind of cycled this several times or several moments in here. And I'm wondering if there is a way to lock the assessment after the enrollment is over, because we've had an issue with some people say, oh, I'm going to go update, this was wrong from your last enrollment, and then it changes their program start date.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Is there a way?
There is not something.
Can't you take once per enrollment, and if they re-enroll, then you
could take it again? But there's not a way to say, because I think I'm assuming you want them to be able to update it until they're dismissed and then not update it afterwards. There's not, but that's a great idea. We definitely can submit a request for that. Lauren's still taking notes. Jennifer.
So you can't do something like, what I would like is to say to your program, okay, this assessment has to be done in September. And after, September 30th, they no longer did it. It sounds like this is, they still have to go in for some time. You can't set one up and say, they'll satisfy.
We're seeing that more and more folks who want to schedule, after the third interaction, have this come, we actually have some, I'm looking at Goodwill San Antonio, I think you're driving some of our rules engines to help drive some of that functionality. So I think it's coming. It's not there yet to be able to say exactly kind of the use case you're looking at.
That if you name the September report or whatever, or September assessment, then you can disable that report at the end of September. And it wouldn't be on maximum. And you can do that.
That report is different.
I'm sorry, that's a report. I mean, assessment, you can disable the assessment.
Yeah.
I think one way that might work in your case is to do a batch upload and start an assessment with September 1st as the start date, and then set lock after 30 days. So that could be a possible way to work.
And isn't there update assessment by group as well?
You can do a batch upload and update. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, great idea. See,
lots of questions.
Smart people in the room. Yes, sure.
You mentioned uploading or transporting data from Excel or Microsoft Word to ETO. What about the other way around? Suppose I wanted a data set from ETO and I wanted to transport it to Excel or to SPSS or something of that sort.
That's actually the live office. That's what we were talking about. You can build the query in ETO, and it would be pulled into a live office report, which could be Excel or Word or whatever. So yeah, you can do that.
Live office, yeah. Take a note. Look up live office. We have a little training video on it, but it'll allow you to refresh the data automatically into Excel. Malika.
I'm just listening to some of the questions, and I know this is a problem. A lot of our users get confused, where it's updating a previous assessment versus taking a new assessment of that same assessment set. And I know our users get confused because it says update, but it's not really. I always tell them it's not really update as much as you need to take a new. So if you have assessment called assessment 1, so it's not really updating the assessment 1 you did in June as it is in September doing another assessment 1. Take new assessment, and you're going to talk about it, pre-populating it, and then changing when necessary. I know a lot of times, and people have not wanted the assessments locked, but we have that problem where we lose the first set of data just overall, because when they do their next quarterly assessment, they just go back and update the first assessment. And I'm listening to the questions, and I'm wondering at which are users using the update when they should really be doing take new assessment.
It depends. Yeah. I think it's really when, in some cases you do want to update so the assessment has the most updated information. If you're actually tracking progress over time, you want to take new so that you can reflect the changes between the two over time. So I don't know that I have a good answer for you. I mean, it's really kind of...
Yeah, if people are updating when they're not supposed to be taking new, then definitely locking it is a way to get around that issue.
Yeah.
Wendy?
Request for assessment identifiers to have like a drop-down value so that you can say first initial plan, updated, discharge, something like that, so it comes up when
That's
you're
a
there.
great idea. Yeah, we have not. Wendy was talking about having a populated assessment identifier choices. That's a great idea. We have not had that to date, no. Yes?
Where the assessment generates a need for follow-up action, is there a way to structure this so that the plan of action can be shown within ETO and we can sort of monitor what's happening?
You can do, so the question was, is there a way to set up a plan of action when an assessment update is needed? You can do the...
Now, not when an assessment update is needed. When an assessment is done and it shows that the person needs to do something in order to help that person, that client, make progress. Is there a way to document that plan of action, those action steps in ETO? That would be very useful for us.
I would think using like a conditional like messaging, like based on these 5 criteria, you know, pregnant, they have not, you know, they're 12 weeks along, they're, you know, have certain indicators. A prompt comes up that says, remind to take prenatal vitamins, or, you know, so you can create conditional rules based on values in the system. So, and they can either be messages or they can be additional questions. Well, did you remember to ask this? That sort of thing. Good conversation, yeah.
This is something I've talked to a couple of different support reps about, but I'm now looking at some people over at there, maybe a few ones. We've struggled with just the fact that when we spend maybe 45 minutes with a client pulling out assessment data, could theoretically put in a field of, wow, it'll be a 5,000 character field to describe the interaction with the client, but then pull out the engagements. And so just the duplication between having to go from time spent, and you know, time spent could theoretically be an assessment and populate time spent on participant efforts and populate that same history, but it's very sort of siloed in how that data gets stored in the system. So, you know, if there's a way that you could check off a box of assessment, make this a case note or something like that.
We have a response to that, and I'm going to touch on that at the end, part of my sneak peek. So if you can hold that, I promise we'll get to it. Yes. There's actually, well, there's both. There's one that conditional messages can come up within the assessment. Right. There's another one called a submission report. So when you hit submit, it actually does a calculation and then it can prompt a message. But putting it on your to-do list, the only way to do that would be at the bottom where you set a reminder to the to-do list there. Shannon, do you have something? No, you were just picking Jennifer.
About the issue with the multiple assessments. I was, when I set up our system, I was trained to, you know, you can take the same assessment multiple times. You know, to analyze the data, that was a problem because all the variables had the same name. So I go back in and create non-linked assessments that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each have different names, each have different pseudonyms, so that when I'm going to analyze my data, I can easily tell that you name all the variables after I export them. My 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the way I've dealt with, you know, that you don't accidentally have somebody updating a time 1 because they go and they can see, oh, there was a 1. Now I need to do 2. Now I need to do 3. For some programs, if they're on the school year, we do just, you know, fall, spring, or something for that year. Because the only thing that's different otherwise is the date. And then everything else is the same. And I wish I hadn't been shown, oh, when you're doing it, you're supposed to link them, because then you have these identical things that are working out. But that doesn't change the fact that question 1 is still named question 1. And it can be named question 1 10 times. So that doesn't help me versus naming question 1, question 1, question 1, question 1.
You exported it all the same? You get all of the different assessments?
Well, I can talk more.
Okay.
I analyze the data and then
I was like, there.
10 o'clock, 15. All right,
We have about 15 more minutes, so
Maybe
I'm going to roll through a little bit quickly. Oh, can you go back real quick?
Yeah.
So we talked about some of these things. We talked about somebody touched on pre-populating from previous assessment, conditional messages we touched on. I don't know if folks know that, but we do have an electronic signature pad. We actually have one set up at the account management table, so if you want to test it out, I do have it asterisked because it is not a free thing, so I want to make sure full disclosure. It's not super expensive, but again, just want to put that out there. So within an assessment, you can actually have people electronically sign. So that's a cool thing. It is not available for points of service. We get asked that all the time now. Not there yet. So again, just an assessment. So I had actually an ETO administrator call me the other day, and she had a need for, every time a certain assessment is taken, I need to be notified. Somebody needs to be notified. How do I create that? So she had an incident report, and as soon as an incident report is done, somebody needs to know. And so I talked to her about, you can actually set up the assessment to create an automatic referral. So again, I think this is another little known feature, is so anytime a certain assessment is done, you send a referral to a program. And I told her to set up a dummy program with a program manager who has the email address of the person that she wants to send to, or it could be an email program or email group. And so what happens is every time I take the incident report, it generates a referral. The referral can automatically generate an email to the program manager notifying them that technically a referral has been made, which actually means an incident report has been completed. So again, just kind of little fun tip of the day. These are some things that, again, Emily and her group asked that we talked about that make sure folks know. We've done a lot of enhancements around security in the system, masking the last 4 digits of social security number once it's been entered, password settings. I don't know, can you speak to specifics there? I apologize.
The password settings allow you to actually have a minimum and a maximum password length, and you can require a certain number of numeric and non-alphanumeric characters, so punctuation. And you can also have a password expiration so that people will be required to reset their password after a certain number of days. Yes? I think that's you can, when you check the box, do you get an option? Check the box. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
And then also, folks have asked us for a while about the limit by IP address. So, if you want to be able to limit folks, you don't want them to actually access from home, and you want to limit to, your IP addresses within your organization, you can now do that as well. So.
That feature is only for enterprises.
Yes. Thank you.
No, just the enterprise, or the IP address. Yeah. Ruth Ann. What was that?
So you can't be a standard on a shared URL. It can't be a standard license.
Sorry, say that again, Ruth Ann?
If we want to add in, now we want you to have your, password bullet prompt as soon as they sign in.
No, it won't, but what you can do is you can just set the expiration date for 1 day or something like that, and so that this way they all are prompted the next time, and then it enforces the password security, and then they'll need to just turn off the expiration or something like that. Or tell them all, send an email saying you all need to go in and change your password or something like that.
I have a question concerning electronic signatures. If clients has an electronic signature on an assessment, is that saved as an image? And if it is, does it take part of that free amount of space that we get if we need to do? In other words, is it just our free space? Because I know after you use a certain amount, it's a certain price.
We actually just increased the storage limit pretty significantly. So
thanks,
Jill. Yes, Jill bugged us enough. So advocated. So we've actually gotten a lot of questions about it recently, and really our theory behind it is storage continues to get cheaper for everybody, including us. And we'll probably continue to reevaluate on an annual basis and probably continue to increase the storage limit as long as storage gets cheaper for us. So it does count against it, but I think it's not gonna. I don't think it'll be a problem. So, oh, it doesn't count against it. Okay, all right. Oh, you're okay. The demographics is what counts against it. Yes.
And another question.
Yes.
Talking about storage spaces. And I'm pretty sure you already asked this. I was the one to ask. Are you looking in the future of being able to see or to determine which particular program is using a certain amount of storage?
So the question is, could we determine which programs are using storage? That is not something that we have on our radar right now. It's certainly something we could look into, but right now it's a we can tell per site, but not per program. Yep. So each typically a location like your office has a certain IP address or a certain range of IP addresses. So if you wanted to only allow your users to log into ETO from your office location and not other locations, then you can limit it so that only certain IP addresses can access the system. So it would have to be a range for the entire, it's for the entire database, not per site. Yeah.
I would love to be able to do the IP address limiting by staff room. Because I want them to just be able to do it at home and weekends, but my other employees where I've got employment issues with them working off hours that I haven't authorized, forbid them from accessing it.
That's a great idea. Yep, coming up to. So this is just, again, hopefully most folks know about these features. So the ones on this hand side, standard impact functionality, are things that, again, you may be using, may not be using, but they just kind of come with the software. Families, households, housing room information. So if you're using HMIS, employment module, scheduling, attendance, barcode scanning, vouchers, volunteer tracking, which is entities, general outreach, and internal external referrals. So again, if you're not using those and you're like, I want to know more about that, again, just drop by either customer support or account management table. We'll talk to you about those. We also have at the account management table our ETO marketplace. We've got the electronic signature pad. We can talk to you about ETO Money, ETO Mobile, which again right now is currently free for up to 50 users. So if you want to know more about that. We have ETO Kiosk, so one of our partners who actually built this kind of check-in functionality. He's got a great little touch screen if you want to see how that works, as well as a card printer he's developed. So like for our Boys and Girls Clubs, we can actually like print out a hard plastic card printer, and so he's got some examples of that set up now as well. So if you want to know more about that, we've got that set up at the ETO marketplace at the account management table.
Blair had a question. Blair?
Any new developments on when the ETO mobile will work in Canada?
We're going to work on getting it working really good in the U.S.
I know. not right now.
Not
I
yet.
don't have any updates.
But thank you for asking.
Related question on ETO mobile, BlackBerry application timeline.
Yeah, again, we're still kind of in V1 of ETO Mobile, so we're still kind of working out the kinks for just the application we have now. So I will say, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, so doors are shut, right? No, it's not a secret. I mean, we're all friends here, right? We have a very strong focus in the next year. Steve, as well as if you haven't met, we have a new Senior VP of Sales, Scott Johnson. And they have a very strong focus on partnerships. And so, ETO, stop trying to be everything to everybody and have to build every single functionality, but finding partners who want to help us build out an ETO mobile application that doesn't just work with iPhones, but works with others. And so I think you will be able to see us bring these things online more quickly with more partners that we can identify. So. Yeah.
I was wondering when ETO might work a little better with Explorer 9.
That is something that I can say we're definitely working on. So our QA team is currently doing a full test to figure out what issues there are, and we're going to be working to resolve those pretty quickly. So maybe I should tell all of you who our director of product development is out there, so you can bug him about it. His name is Adam. He's very nice.
The question when is it going to work better with Internet Explorer 9?
Yeah.
So,
so that is something that's
it's
on
in
the
progress
priority
right
list.
now.
Yeah.
So the last I just wanted to touch base. Let's skip through that.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about some new features coming out. Again, don't we do a new feature review for customers or like a recorded training that you can watch? So you'll get this anyway, but since you came to the conference, we'll get you a little preview here. But so the participant dashboard, which we talked about at the very beginning, there's some new parts that are coming out that you can assign. So you can add groups, so it'll allow you to see what groups your participants are a part of. Participant matches. So again, if you don't know what that is, it's basically the ability to take somebody who's maybe a volunteer or a mentor who's in the system as an entity, and you can link them to your participant. So the participant match functionality will allow you to see kind of who's matched to that client. Housing occupancy, again, for our housing folks, you can see, you know, I presume it tells you which room they're in and what bed unit and things like that. And then also for those who are using ETO money, it will, there's also a part to show you rejecting case notes.
Yes.
I guess that's self-explanatory. Staff dashboard, new parts coming, recent entities. Right now it's very participant focused, so you will be able to actually also see recent entities you worked with as well as groups that you work with. How does that work?
The groups, you'll actually see a list of the groups that are in your program, and you'll be able to go and add members to the group from your dashboard. You can add a new group from your dashboard. You can make changes to the group name, things like that. And then there's actually a whole separate groups dashboard. So for each group, there will be a list of the members and some information about the group, and then also recent efforts that were made with the group, so you can make changes to those efforts or record a new group
That's
effort.
the group dashboard.
That's the group
not
dashboard,
the my
yes.
groups
Not
as
the
part
my
of the
groups,
staff. Okay,
right,
that's
yeah.
what I was saying. And then for those who use entities who never get any love, we've got entity dashboards now coming out. Yes.
You mentioned that with group dashboards, you can add new participants to them. Will that work in sync with entity classes?
If the group is linked to, when you add a new group, if you use the, you have to go entity to group. So once you add the group, it will be on the dashboard and you can add members to it, but actually the process of adding the group, because you have to add the entity first, it's not in the, that's a good question, yeah. Little used feature, but yeah, that's great that you are using it. Other questions, Vince?
If you use the participant match feature and match with the entity, will we also be able to then report on both participant and entity?
We do have a number of standard reports that are in there. It's the participant match section of the standard reports, and we also just added it recently to the ETO results universe, so you can build your own reports on that as well. It allows you to record efforts against both at the same time. And track the history of the match, when it started, when it ended. Yep. Okay.
Before, oh wait, okay, go ahead. Next one, shoot. I thought
we talked about.
We talked about. These are other features coming out. Assessment locking. We talked about that. Vouchers are now going to be at the site level, not just program level. So you can have site level vouchers and funds. Right now, it's restrict the ability to add a new entity. So when you go to make a referral, and if your person you're trying to refer to isn't on the list, it allows you to add a new entity. And we have a lot of folks that go, make them stop adding new entities because we got lots of duplicates. You can actually turn that off now. It also works with the add new employment page as well. So when you go to add new employer, if you don't see an employer, they'd have to call somebody else to add it. They can't add it themselves. Quick search. You can search for first name only. Random.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's some new of our standard Webby reports that are coming out. So these are in the results section, which means that you can run them as well as save copies and edit them. So if you like it, but you'd like to add a filter or something like that, you can do that as well. Before you go to the next page. So I need to caveat. I need to, again, this is, super secret stuff. I can't, can't be held responsible for this. But I was given screenshots, so I said I was going to share them. And I'm getting back to the question that was asked over here about points of service and assessments. I need to tell this group as well, do not panic, because I know the first thing you guys are going to say is like, oh my God, I've got all this data. How am I going to get to you? We're going to figure that out, and we're going to work together. This is a partnership. But so we've been working on it for a while now, and again, a new beta version is coming out in this next release of something we're calling single form. So if you want to go to the next, it's a little hard to see. But essentially, the idea here is that we do away with the concept of an assessment versus a point of service. I create one form, and I can say, do I want to track time? Do I want to track case notes? Do I want to, and I can link the questions. You see here, and this is my favorite thing, if you've ever built long 50 question assessments or whatever, every time you add a question, it adds it to the bottom and then jumps to the top of the page out. You see here, right in the middle, I can add a question wherever I want it to go. Again, there's going to be security things, allow certain people can update certain things that other people can't. There's going to be conditionality. It's going to be like assessments
disable questions.
Right, instead of deleting them. Yeah. So again, some really cool stuff coming out. Again, I don't have, I'm again putting this up front, we don't necessarily have all the migration plans, how we're going to move from existing to here. We're going to start with a few pilot groups first to kind of test it out with new assessments and new data. So if you want to be a part of that, let me know. These are just more screenshots of how you kind of create them. Well, it's coming, the initial version is coming in the October release. So it's not going to be general availability, but like I said, some folks who kind of wanted to help us test it out and try it out, we're welcome to that.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, what was that?
Are you going to get rid of what's currently?
No. Yeah, that's the other. Sorry. That's why I don't want to make anybody panic. Nothing's going away.
Yeah.
This is an option.
This
for
is
folks.
optional. Optional.
I knew I was going to cause panic with some people.
Have you ever considered being able to add users to a single form, or add participants to a single form as well?
I think that is something that's going to be later down the line. Is going to be you can add somebody and add their assessment data and all of that all in one place. So this is very. What was that?
So intake doesn't take 3 steps anymore.
Yes, that's the end goal.
Yes.
So I'm not, again, this is very new functionality. It's going to be released in just a beta form. So I can't make all the promises, but that has been discussed. I can say that. Yep. Yeah.
I think we're out of time. So I want to thank everybody for your time, your attention, your conversations, your input. Hopefully everybody came away with a little bit of something, even for you super users who have been around a while. If you didn't like the session, when you fill out your comment card, David Hunter session, that's what this was. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Appreciate it.